Yeah, his skill set's crazy, but it's his mentality that makes him special. Imagine being part of what's considered by many people to be the best team ever assembled and saying you're going to be the number one option.
I'm still the number one option. I mean, y'all might look at it differently. I don't look at it differently.
Let's face it, many people would consider that disrespectful. But that doesn't happen in Ant's case because everyone knows exactly what he's like. That crazy, fun, and defiant attitude is what's made everyone fall in love with his game.
Edwards! Oh my!
However, these Olympics serve to confirm what everyone suspected. Anthony Edwards is the player who will lead this team for the next decade. Once again, expectations were high, but once again, he's been able to exceed them. Sometimes it seems that the pressure just doesn't get to him. It seems that those factors that are capable of bringing down some super talents at times aren't able to affect his performance, and that's precisely what makes him a player with generational potential. Now, why was Edwards' performance the best that Team USA was able to get out of those Olympics? Let's talk about it. Everyone knew Ant was an incredible player with great projection. But let's be honest, 2 years ago, no one expected the guard to be able to make this leap in quality in such a short period of time. The last 12 months have been simply incredible. In the 2023 play-in, Edwards played one of the worst games of his career against the Lakers, in a game that the Wolves had to win. It must have been a real turning point for him, because since then, his progress has been unreal. Edwards has turned a franchise that had been uncompetitive for decades into a powerhouse in the West. And not just any West, because today we're talking about one of the most talent-packed conferences ever. Minnesota, without changing much of the roster that was an average team at best last season, has been able to make an incredible leap in competitiveness. And I have no doubt that this has been due to the explosion of one of the best young stars in the league. We all know what happened next. The Wolves beat the Phoenix Suns of Ant's idol Kevin Durant, and not only did they beat him, but they swept them during that first round of the playoffs just a few months ago. Following that, they then pulled off a major upset by eliminating Nikola Jokic's Nuggets, who were the defending champs, in 7 games. In doing so, Minnesota reached the conference finals for the second time in franchise history since they did it with Kevin Garnett back in 2004. It's not just the fact that Ant's only 23 years old, it's the fact that at that age, he already knows what it's like to win in the NBA. He already knows what it's like to be the leader of a franchise that this season's going to be considered a contender. And that's something really rare in the modern NBA, where young players have to play a lot until they're able to become this kind of game changer. Now the scary thing is that it seems to be just the beginning. It's a sign that Steve Kerr only called 2 players from the ones that were part of the Team USA roster from the last World Cup, because as we all know, the performance of this team, it was pretty disappointing. Not only did they not make it to the final, but they also lost the bronze medal game against Canada. So the only thing that Kerr took away from that tournament is that the Olympic roster would have to look very different. So as I said, only Anthony Edwards and Tyrese Halliburton repeated on the 2024 Avengers team, and the Pacers guard played the least in the entire Olympics. To contrast this with Ant though, his experience was completely different. During the first 4 games of the tournament, Anthony Edwards was pivotal for Team USA. He scored 11 points in 19 minutes against Serbia, 13 points in 17 minutes against South Sudan, 26 points in 17 minutes against Puerto Rico, and 17 points in 21 minutes against Brazil. And the most incredible thing is that his efficiency in each and every one of his performances was completely spectacular. During those moments, it seemed like Ant was really telling the truth. When he was on the court, you had the feeling that he was the first offensive option for Team USA, especially considering that Steph didn't start the tournament strong, and LeBron was taking on a playmaker role. Logically, we should admit that not everything was a bed of roses. In the 2 most important games of the tournament against Serbia in the semifinals and against France in the final, Ant played less minutes. And in the minutes he did play, his importance decreased from the group games. However, it's got to be understood that Edwards was the youngest player on the roster. In fact, at the end of the tournament, Ant was the 6th player with the most minutes played of the whole team, and the leading scorer off the bench and 4th leading scorer overall. But the situation that Team USA found itself in allowed him to learn a lesson that he wouldn't have been able to learn otherwise. A lesson that he'll know how to use when he'll be, without a doubt, the first offensive option of the host team in the 2028 Olympic Games in Los Angeles. Because when you think about it, which players of this team will be available in 4 years? It seems very unlikely that Kevin Durant, LeBron James, or Stephen Curry will still be around, although I wouldn't be surprised if one of them is ready for a last dance. The same could be said for Drew Holiday, a player who's been a starter throughout the tournament for his defensive contributions. Joel Embiid will be 34 years old and should be available, but he's let it slip that he would like to lead Cameroon in the next Olympics. So those who could realistically make the roster would be Devin Booker, Bam Adebayo, Anthony Davis, Jason Tatum, Tyrese Halliburton, Derek White, and of course Anthony Edwards. And I have a really hard time thinking that the leader of that team wouldn't be Ant, with the help of Tatum and D-Book. You also have to take into account the enormous emerging talent that Team USA always has at its disposal. The Jaylen Brown snub may have caused a rift between the Finals MVP and Steve Kerr, but the team still has plenty of options. Ja Morant, Zion Williamson, Paolo Banchero, Jalen Brunson, Tyrese Maxey, Donovan Mitchell, De'Aaron Fox, Jalen Williams, Scotty Barnes, Brandon Miller, or even Cooper Flagg, who, as we know, hasn't made his professional basketball debut yet, but he's played in several scrimmages with Team USA during the month of July in which, in addition, he left a very good impression. However, it's very complicated that any of these names can assume more offensive responsibilities than Ant in the next Olympics. Why? Well, it's very simple. Just because of his experience in international basketball and FIBA rules. Edwards not only knows what it's like to win an Olympic gold at the age of 23, but he also knows what it's like to have the team on his back. We know that Team USA wasn't at its best in 2023, but if anyone kept their composure and prevented an even bigger disaster, it was Edwards. His experience is simply greater than that of any other player who hasn't played in a senior tournament with the team. Besides, honestly, do any of the names on that list have more potential than the Timberwolves guard? Let me doubt it. It's amazing that such a young kid's broken so many barriers. It's clear that America trusts him to be the leader and captain of the team, however, there's still a long way to go. Anthony has a mission to accomplish before the Los Angeles Olympics. He has to fulfill that prophecy he seems destined to fulfill. He has to become the face of the NBA as soon as possible. After the golden generation that's populated the league during the 2010s, the United States needs a player who can aspire to be the man in a league that's increasingly dominated by international players. And the passage of time is showing us that even the most talented American players have not been up to the task. Or at least at the moment. For a moment, it seemed that Donovan Mitchell or Devin Booker could become that chosen one. So did Ja Morant and Zion Williamson. So did Jason Tatum, who's without a doubt the one closest to this status. However, for one reason or another, none of them's managed to become one of the top 3 players in the league. But Ant's case is different. He seems capable. After demonstrating his ambition with both Team USA and the Timberwolves, he's shown that he already knows how to win. He knows what it's like to lead a talented team and take charge, and he knows what it's like to be that difference maker who, if he can't show up, will make his team succumb. At only 23 years old, Anthony's already getting into conversations that his peers have not been able to enter. And on him falls the biggest responsibility an American player can have. The responsibility of being the next to carry the most valuable torch in the world.